this in case people want to get a to review it. You know, they can't get enough of my voice. So anyway, I think there should be 10 people, but you know, there are 6 of you here. I'm going to get started. My name is Mark Frangillo. I am the Westlaw account manager at Harvard Law School, and this particular session is really designed to give you a couple of other approaches to researching that Sanchez issue. Keep in mind, hopefully you were all aware that I had previously taped 2 different videos. One covers, they're pretty much 15 minutes each. One covers non-compete, and the other covers the at-will breach of contract issue. I also have provided you with a handout that covers some of the searches in that video. I'm going to kind of carry on and talk about some of the other things that didn't make it to the video. Most of these things are in the handout, but there are a couple of other tips that I'm going to just post in chat with links so you could recreate on your own. And if you have questions, by all means, let me know. First of all, in case you didn't have access or didn't know how to get to the previously recorded material in the handout, I just pasted it in chat. You could click that link to view it. Now, with respect to the non-compete and the breach of contract at will issue, I wanted to sort of, again, a couple of different approaches. If you watched the other videos I did, I started those videos from the premise where you had a couple of known documents, you had a couple of relevant cases, and you used the topic and key number system and maybe key citing references to extract additional information. And that's a good habit to get into. If you land on a good topic and key number, you can get quite a bit of information that you need to answer a client's question or to research a particular issue. These other approaches I'm going to show you, you know, you might like one of them, you might not like either of them, but you know, they're different ways of researching. You know, one search is not research. The one thing that I would want to sort of start to steer you away from doing is just simply typing a relevance rank search. I mean, that's fine to start, but it's really not how you want to just, you're not going to get everything you need with a relevance rank search. It's a good starting point. So first tip, this issue, I love this issue because it gives me an ability to introduce you to something that you're all going to be using for your summer jobs and where you're out there practicing. And it's just such an awesome product that you have access to. Harvard subscribes to not only Westlaw, but they subscribe to something called Practical Law as well. Think about it this way: Practical Law is a legal know-how tool, and whereas Westlaw gives you the ability to research and understand the law, I think of Practical Law as showing you how to apply the law in action. And Practical Law is set up like the practice departments in a large law firm. And every document you see here is written by an attorney who's had at least 8 to 12 or 13 plus years experience, I should say, in that particular practice area. And they maintain the documents for accuracy. And there are various types of documents. Practice notes are really like secondary sources designed to get you up to speed with a particular issue that you're researching. Standard documents are actual forms that, as I said, are maintained for accuracy. Many of them are state related, and you could just plug your client's information in. Checklists will make sure you've done your due diligence on a particular issue. For those of you with a non-compete issue, this is a good illustration of why this is such a really good resource. If I ran just non-compete agreement and I limited the results to New York, and I think I have this in the handout. You could hyperlink to the search in the handout, but there are a couple of really, really good documents, you know, if you were doing this from the non-compete. The checklist, drafting an employee non-compete, best practices. Now you might be saying, well, what good is a checklist? Well, it's going to have your case law, or I should say your primary sources, cases, statutes, and if they apply, regulations tied to the checklist. If you had started with this, you'd have a great jumping off point of relevant cases on this particular issue. You know, the reasonableness of the restriction, etc. So that's just the checklist. But look at, this is an actual standard document you could use in New York if you had to draft a non-compete. And as I said, they're not just forms, they're forms with much more than that. This is, we can see how up to date it is. This is the law in New York as of last April. Nothing has changed. If something has changed in New York, the attorney who monitors this would update the document to reflect. But the best part about these documents, the attorney who created this has included drafting notes throughout the document. So, you know, if you wanted to know why the restrictive covenants acknowledgement clause is drafted that way, you click, and this is as if the attorney is talking to you, giving you background on why it's structured that way. So if you had the non-compete issue and you started with these two documents, you would have had a lot of good foundation to start with when researching this issue. For those of you who were looking at the at-will issue, this is on the handout as well, but I chose to go with a terms and connectors search here. So this search, as you know, is going to give us every document where employee, employer, employment is in the same grammatical sentence as either at will or contract, which should be in the same grammatical sentence as duration or indefinite. I should have added term maybe too. And I spelled something incorrectly in that. It has a spell check, so that's good. Now, again, when you limit to New York, two items here that are going to be really helpful. And again, these are both in the handout. You can hyperlink in the handout and get them. But I really needed to explain practical law so you could sort of see the utility it has, not just for Ames, but this is something that in firms is more popular than Westlaw in terms of renewal rates. Any of you going to large law firms, you're going to see practical law. I mean, it's of the top 200 firms, it's in like 194 of the top 200 firms. Employment litigation, contract causes of action. I'll just show you one because I got to move on to a couple of other searches. But like I showed you for the documents that we talked about for non-compete, you know, here's some good background on this particular issue that you could have really used as a starting point. So that's practical law. And again, all of what I just showed there is replicated in the handout on page 3 of the handout. If you want to move back to Westlaw, keep in mind we're in a separate product. So you're going to click the drop down or the arrow at the top, select Westlaw, takes us back to this home page. Now, the searches I wanted to talk about here, and this was a little bit of a confusing issue in the last class, so I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. It's okay to do a global search when you're starting. You know, you could do a terms and connectors search from this particular perspective as well if you wanted to. But keep in mind, whenever you type a search here, it's going to search and retrieve content from these 14 categories. What I want you to start thinking about doing is drilling into individual databases. And the reason you'd want to do that, for terms and connectors purposes, it's, I think, more important that you do that. And let me just hold there for a second. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. But if I drilled into New York right now, do I want New York federal as well? All right, why not? I guess it doesn't really matter. Those of you who are researching the, well, you know that the Wiener case, the at-will employment doctrine in New York, there's an exception to at-will employees. It's called the Wiener exception. You know, if you wanted to run a search like this in New York, and I don't think this is in the, oh, it is in the handout, so you could just hyperlink from the handout. That is going to retrieve every single case that mentions that particular issue. The thing I do want to point out about New York that's a little bit unique, they have their own official reports. I am not a real fan of using the US reports or, you know, the New York official reports, because they're not as up to date as the regional reporters that West publishes, and they also don't have as extensive a topic and key number system. In fact, the US reporter doesn't have a key number system. So if you're in New York, you have the choice between researching in the official reporter or researching just the regional reporters. Always go with the regional reporters. Now, we got 49 cases that mention the Wiener exception to the at-will employment doctrine in New York. Of these 49, I'm telling you that some of them are not going to be relevant. Some of these cases mention this issue in dicta or in footnotes, and it's going to be a waste of time for you. So here's the shortcut, and this is not in the handout, so I'll paste it in chat in a minute. If you're reading a case and it mentions your issue in either the, well, this is an unreported case, in either the synopsis or the head notes, you know the case is directly on point. So what I always tell students to do, anytime you're researching an issue, and you know that this is what you want, there's no other way of describing the Wiener exception to the at-will employment doctrine in New York. I can click advanced, and not only does it give me a fill-in-the-blank screen that gives me guidance on how to build a terms and connector search, if I wanted Westlaw to only search certain parts of every case looking for my terms, instead of having it search the entire text like I just did, I could have it search just the summary of the case and just the head notes, i.e. the synopsis and the digest. The thinking here is that if they mention your issues in either place, you know you got a relevant result. Now this was maybe way too restrictive, right? I knocked it down from 49 to 2, but that's just a really good way of ensuring you're getting just relevant cases, every relevant case, I should say, in New York on a specific issue. I'm going to paste that sci-di search at will. You could run that search on your own. Likewise, for those of you who are searching the researching the non-compete issue, This one I'm definitely not going to type. I saved it. This particular search is giving us, it's one of, I love using, I mean, for those of you who liked algebra, this is going to make a lot of sense, right? I'm looking right now for cases that mention the phrase learned profession in the same paragraph as either non-compete or compete or restrictive. Or I'm looking for cases that mention either unique or extraordinary in the same grammatical sentence as skill, and that all should be in the same grammatical paragraph as non-compete, non-competition, non-competing, or compete, competition, or restrictive. So you can use parentheses on Westlaw to change the order of operation. This search is completely different than this search, because this would search for either learned profession or unique or extraordinary in the same sentence as skill, and I don't want that. I want this group, these terms to be grouped together. So I can use the parentheses to change the order of operation. Great, do that, run that search, and I got way too much. I got 110 just in the regional reporter itself. Well, again, I can do what I showed you a few minutes ago. Click advanced. Instead of searching the entire text of every case, limit it to the summary and the head notes. And now I've gotten exactly what I needed. I cut it down dramatically. I got 23 in the regional reporter. That's a great starting point. So those of you researching that non-compete issue, this is called the side-eye search. Now, two final things I wanted to mention real quick. This is a 20-minute session. Once you're done with your draft, hopefully you're done with the draft. Well, it's going to be done by Friday, so maybe by Thursday you're done with the draft. Just make sure you run it through Quick Check before you submit. Quick Check is on the homepage. Some of you have probably used it already for your open memo. It's going to go through your document, and it's going to basically let you know what you might have missed. It's going to use the arguments it's going to take the arguments you used and the authorities you cited, and it's going to suggest additional highly relevant documents. It has a quote checker as well. So if you've used quotes, it's going to check your quote, the actual quote, let you know of any differences. If you cited to the wrong page for a quote, it's going to alert you to that. The final tip, and this is one that you don't have to worry about right now. This is something you do in the final version of your brief, but I wanted to plant the seed right now. One of the other products that Harvard subscribes to is you have access to a portion of Drafting Assistant. And the portion of Drafting Assistant you have access to is the table of authorities. So it actually has a table of authorities builder where it will extract all the citations from your brief, and it will go through and build your table of authorities in a couple of minutes. So, this was a brief that I pulled that I think a lot of these cases might be familiar to you, because this is this is based off of the Sanchez issue. But Drafting Assistant will automatically build a table of authorities for you. And I can just show you how to get in there. So, boom, TOA builder, click, and it will build your table of authorities. Any questions on that? Or anything else